Good afternoon. I'm Pep Rosenfeld, and as you heard, I'm from Boom, Chicago. How's everybody doing? Right. This is a remote presentation. I can't hear anything you say. We're going to get used to this. For those of you that don't know, Boom, Chicago is a comedy theater that I formed in 1993 in Amsterdam. Why Amsterdam? Well, not for the reason you think. No. It was for the drugs. So that was 27 years ago. By the way, congratulations, Sorainen, on your 25th anniversary. That's 2 years younger than Boom Chicago, but who's counting? No one. Anyway, in those 27 years, we've grown to the point that we're one of the longest running comedy shows in the Netherlands. And it's awesome for me because I get to travel around the world, sometimes remotely, working with theaters, festivals, business events. But I have to say, it's always a pleasure to be right here in my own office in front of my very favorite group of people of them all, lawyers and support team specialists from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Belarus dedicated to prosperity in the region, as well as their clients and cooperating law firms. So thank you very much. Now, I've been invited here this afternoon to speak on the topic, growing the leader inside yourself, which I have to admit sounds like a pretty heavy topic for someone whose background is comedy. In fact, one of you actually asked anonymously, you coward, someone asked if my being a comedian will inhibit my ability to discuss serious issues. And to you, I can only say I think the answer is we are about to find out. But there are three reasons I believe qualify me for talking to you about growing your inner leader. First, as a company founder and the artistic director for that company for 15 years, I actually am a leader. Second, I didn't take part of A is I didn't actually take classes on how to lead people or run the company. If I'm honest, I didn't even want to start the company. I just wanted to make fun of stuff. But remember those drugs I joked about earlier? That was no joke. That was serious. And while we were there in Amsterdam, we had what will go down in history as the best stoner idea ever. We decided to start a theater company in Amsterdam. After all, we were doing comedy shows in Chicago. They speak English in Amsterdam. There's tourists. It made super duper sense. But unlike many ideas, we wrote ours down and acted on it. But it wasn't a plan. It was just a random idea. So I'm not just a leader. I'm an accidental leader. You know what I mean? I actually had to decide to grow the leader inside me, just like many of you. Because after all, I didn't start out like this. I started out like this. Now, the second reason is that I host a lot of events where a lot of leaders and those who research and study leaders speak. And by the way, I never really realized that studying leadership is such a cottage industry, but it most certainly is. I mean, just to name a few, I've hosted the Nordic Business Forum, the Next Web, Change 19, and the internal events. Oh my goodness. I've been part of so many internal events. The stories I could tell you, but you'll have to wait for me to release my book. They should have made me sign an NDA. No, they most of them have lawyers just like you guys. They certainly did make me sign the NDA. But I've heard from quite a few of these great leaders and those that study them. From CEOs of major companies to folks like Simon Sinek, Brene Brown, Sarah Blakely, Gary Vaynerchuk, Carla Harris, Adam Grant, and Barack Obama, I have learned from the best. I heard all this information, took it in, made notes, and synthesized it just for you. In this way, I'm kind of like a legal support team, except I probably won't be replaced by AI within the next 3 years. Finally, the third reason. I realize that there are two different kinds of people. One group takes responsibility for their actions. The other always finds a loophole, always finds a way that it's not their fault. One group uses clear and direct language to make sure they're understood. The other uses convoluted sentences and no one can follow them. One group is willing to talk to everyone. The other prefers to speak to people just like them, or worse, only people that pay them. Of course, these two groups I'm talking about are leaders and lawyers. Now, is that fair? Of course not. But it is fair to say you guys get a bad rap. A lot of people are like, lawyers have no morals. They charge too much. All they care about is money. And of course, the people that say this about lawyers are called clients. To be honest, when I told my friends I was doing this talk, they were like, awesome, who's it for? And I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to be embarrassed. So I was like, oh, who's it for? It's for pornographers. Yes, I'm speaking to pornographers. And my friends were like, what? Pornographers? Well, at least it's not a bunch of lawyers. So I think we've all got a lot to share with each other. And I've learned a few things that I'm happy to share with you today. But I want to say this before we start. the path is different from everyone. Your leadership journey may vary from mine. The best advice I can give you is to try all the tools you're offered and then use the ones that work best for you. I decided to grow the leader inside me because I wanted to create a great comedy show, and my team, actors, technicians, they were all depending on me. This was my purpose. And according to Simon Sinek, see, just for you. According to Simon Sinek, every good company has a purpose, a cause around which the team can rally. Yours is fantastic. Oh my God. Growing prosperity in the Baltic states and Belarus by helping clients succeed in business. Oh, mwah! Oh, that is a beautiful purpose. And I understand this purpose was developed 7 years ago at a partners meeting in Malta. So let me say this, congratulations, partners, for going to Malta. But when I heard this, it made me think of two things. One, I wonder what other examples of leadership come from Malta. Two, Malta, isn't that where they filmed a lot of Game of Thrones? And by the way, it totally is. So while Malta is where Sorainen made some great leadership decisions and discovered its company purpose, Malta is also where King Joffrey, perhaps the worst leader ever, forced his wife-to-be to look at her father's head on a spike, and it's where King Drago, I call him Aquaman, married the mother of dragons and then consummated that marriage totally against her will. And I guess my point here is that there's no wrong time or place for a leader to think about his or her purpose and about the purpose of his or her team and company. So let's talk about leaders at Sorainen. Now, as I understand it, the way it tends to work here is that the best lawyers are promoted to leadership positions, right? I have to admit, I heard this and I was like, ooh, I don't know if that's the best system. Because being great at a job doesn't necessarily mean you'll be awesome at coaching other people to do the job. You know, without growing your inner leader, the best you might be able to offer young leaders is something to the tune of, oh, you want to be good? Well, watch and learn, baby. But you need to do better. I'd also say that the job of leader is more than just the job description. It's what you make of it. It's how you see your role. Leadership comes, and I think this is important, leadership comes from whether or not you're excited about leading the people or not. If you're mostly concerned with yourself, you're going to see meetings with your team as just like to-do lists. You know, you'll be talking to the person you're leading and you'll be like, yeah, targets, check. Positive words, check. Criticism, check. Pat, pat, pat on the back. Out you go. Next. But if you're concerned about your team, you put them before yourself. This explains the title of Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last. Leaders want to bring out the best in their people. And if this doesn't turn you on, that's fine. It doesn't have to turn you on. Everyone is different. But if it doesn't turn you on, you probably won't be a great leader. But if you love your team and you want to push them toward the company's purpose, you can push yourself to be a better leader. How? Well, I looked at your current leadership competencies for the various types of folks at Sorainen. And I'm not going to lie, it was a long pair of slides with lots of words and small fonts. Here, let's take a look. Whoa, man, oh man, what is it with you legal people? You actually like this slide, don't you? You're looking at the slide going, yeah, I hope there's two of them. And by the way, there were two of them. I'm only showing you one. But if I can oversimplify, and let's face it, with only 20 minutes, oversimplifying is my only realistic option, a few things stood out on all of them. First of all, take personal responsibility for your actions, your career, and your colleagues. Give and receive feedback with openness, honesty, and respect. Empower, coach, teach, and recruit new teammates. Be calm, positive, and flexible. And of course, listen. And I'm pretty sure I just summed up those ginormous slides in just 35 words. You're welcome. But hey, I get it. You're lawyers. Why use 35 words when you've got 2 full pages to fill? Now, let me take a look at 2 of these points. I'm afraid I don't have time to dive into all 5. First of all, feedback. I want to focus first on giving feedback. And when you're giving feedback, you can be honest or dishonest, and you can be kind or unkind. And I even made one of those 4-quadrant charts that everyone loves. Now, both of these are choices, and you have to choose to be unkind or kind and to be honest or dishonest. Now, I think we all know people that are honest but unkind. I live in Holland, and this is Dutch people to a T. They are brutally honest. I mean, sometimes a Dutch person might be trying to give you a compliment, and it comes out sounding like an insult. Like if one of my Dutch colleagues wanted to tell me, hey, Pep, did you lose weight? He'd probably say something like, whoa, you used to be very fat. Then there are people that are dishonest but kind. Those are the ones that say, oh my God, I love that dress, even when the dress looks like this. But here's a pro tip. Being dishonest is never, ever kind. And then you've got people that are dishonest and unkind. Let's see, can I think of an example of an unkind, dishonest person? Oh, yes, that will do. That would be like when this fella says things like, Sleepy Joe Biden is going to take away your guns and your freedom because he hates America and he's secretly the devil. You don't want to be that person. What you want to be is you want to be kind and honest. Your photo here. Because good leaders are honest, but they're also kind. And it takes work and it's a choice. Now, let's talk about listening. Good leaders need to be humble. And that means that they need to be willing to listen from anyone at any time. As Sarah Blakely says, see, Sarah Blakely, just for you. As she says, leaders have to be willing to ask why. They have to be willing to look dumb. Because the worst leader is one who thinks they know everything and has a closed mind to new information. If you want to grow as a leader or even as a person, I recommend you think hard about Stephen Covey's fifth habit. Covey? Seek first to understand and then to be understood. And no, I never hosted an event where Stephen Covey spoke. He died in 2012, but I can read. Anyway, in all honesty, listening is the best advice I can give anyone who wants to lead. It's also, by the way, the best way to learn. I think the best leader regards every conversation as a learning opportunity and thus as a two-way experience. And you can't go into these conversations thinking you know exactly what the other person's going to say. You ever do that? You ever go into a conversation and someone's talking and you think to yourself, oh yeah, I know where this is going. I know what they're about to say, and I know how this story ends. And then you do one of two things. You either sort of start going through your to-do list, in your head, and then you just wait for them to stop talking because their lips move, and then you go like, oh yeah, we'll get right back to you on that. Or you do the thing where you interrupt them and finish their sentence for them, which, spoiler alert, nobody likes. That's not leadership. That is actively avoiding what someone is saying. So you got to try to actively listen. And while you're doing that, I recommend you don't shoot ideas down too quickly. At Boom Chicago, we have a motto: love every idea for a minute. We try to say yes to ideas and talk about them, even if we don't use them eventually. And by the way, yes does not mean yes, but. You don't want to be the person that's like, oh, yes, that's a good idea, but we don't really have the budget this year. You know what I mean? Sometimes people say yes, but, and it's just a yes, it's just a no dressed up in a yes costume to come to the meeting. Yes, but is like when the person you're dating says to you, oh, no, we're not breaking up. We're just seeing other people. Yeah, maybe that's true. But more likely is I better go freshen up my Tinder profile. So I try to say yes and to ideas, and I recommend you try to do the same thing. When you say yes and actually build on what the person is telling you, you tell the person behind the idea that you're willing to think it through with them. Even if you eventually say no to the idea, they're heard and they feel respected, and that's huge. That's how you create a safe psychological work environment, one that encourages risk-taking and innovation. This psychological safety, says Brene Brown, she says this is a key factor in stimulating high-performance teams. It's the factor when Google did their Project Aristotle to study teams that succeed. And who knows? If you brainstorm with a yes-and mentality, you might get to an idea you never would have thought of if you'd said no to the original one. So listening and saying yes and are great ways to get the most out of your team. But let's face it, sometimes when you talk to your team, you watch their eyes and you see them go into the famous fight or flight response. You know, fight or flight, right? Back in caveman times, when our primitive ancestors met up with a predator, their primitive brains were like, oh, what do? We can fight or we can run like hell. And, some of the ones that fought lost the fight, and some of the ones that ran got caught, and their genes were taken out of the gene pool, and that's evolution. And I was thinking about this, and I thought to myself, wait, hang on. What about my ancestors? What about caveman Pep? Because if my ancestors were anything like me back in those days, they weren't great at fighting, and they weren't fast at running, so how did I end up here? And it made me think there must be a third way. Make your opponent laugh. I feel like when primitive Pep met up with a predator, and the predator was like, I will eat you, my primitive ancestor was like, no eat, listen. Two Neanderthals walk into bar, and first Neanderthal say, nothing, Neanderthal brainstem, too primitive for verbal speech. And the predator was like, and he was disarmed. And maybe he let my ancestor go. Or maybe he was so charmed that he tried to mate with my ancestor, which became the world's first HR problem. Now, this must be why I'm here. Fight or flight is what a lot of teammates feel when facing a leader. And that's why I believe a joke, especially a self-depreciating joke, can take that natural instinct, fight or flight, and add a third option. See the humor and the humanity in the situation. Humor can get people to engage with each other, with the difficult situations they're facing, and yes, with the person talking. That's you. And this is great news for leaders. When a leader is willing to laugh at themselves and they tell the team that they understand their flaws, that their ego is in check. And that's huge. So let's go back to your big 5 traits. Your big 5 traits are these. And if you're choosing a leader, you would definitely search for these attributes. And this is good to know because in my home country, the USA, we are about to choose a new leader. And I don't know what you've heard, but it's already been 4 years since we said goodbye to the old American president, Barack Obama, and said hello to our current American president, Vladimir Putin. No, it's Trump. And I bring Trump up again because you know how you can tell these are the attributes of a good leader? Because this is exactly the opposite of how Donald Trump does things. Think about it. Imagine if Donald Trump was a partner here at Sorainen. A junior lawyer would be like, Mr. Trump, I'm here for some feedback. And Trump would be like, great, because I have all the best feedback. I know I got great feedback. I'm fantastic. And here it is. You are a loser. You're not a very smart person. Sad. And be like, oh, well, in that case, do you have some time to mentor me, offer me some coaching? Oh, you want coaching? Of course you do. Let me ask you something. What's in it for me? Not some sucker that coaches for nothing. I mean, unless you look like my daughter, then I'd be happy to offer you some very personal coaching. Here, sign this NDA. Okay, would you listen for a moment? Of course, I'm the best listener. I'm world-class listener. I'm the best listener. I've got all the best ears. I'm going to make your career great again. By the way, you're fired. So congratulations on these 5 traits for leaders. If you want to start growing the leader inside you and embodying these, I recommend you also commit yourself to these 3 things I've recommended. Commit yourself to listening, to having a yes and mentality, and to using self-depreciating humor when you can. But there's one more thing I haven't mentioned yet, and that is emotions. Because many people, especially in data-filled worlds like law, believe the data speaks for itself. But it totally does not. You have to speak for the data. And while the law is convincing to many, what convinces most human beings is emotion. You connecting to the emotion of what you're saying and your audience's ability to connect to your emotion is what is going to make your point come across. So I want to try something. And to do this, I need you to participate. Now, I can't hear you and I can't see you, but I need you to speak up right there wherever you are in your home. It will feel weird, but it'll be fun. We're going to count to 21, but every 3 numbers, I'm going to ask you to continue with a different emotion. It's going to be easy. First, we'll say 1, 2, 3, and we're just going to be neutral, but be loud and proud while you're neutral. Here we go. And 1, 2, 3. Excellent. You've nailed neutral. As lawyers, legal assistants, and clients, I am not surprised at all. For 4, 5, and 6, we're going to be happy. But I want you to be super happy. Show me your happiness in your face, your body, your voice. Really be happy. And here we go. And 4, 5, 6. Oh, I'm pretty happy. And you're watching me going, we believe the drug story now. 7, 8, 9, I want you to be angry. So don't be afraid to show your anger. Again, your face, your body, your voice for 7, 8, 9. Here we go. And 7, 8, 9. Ooh, these digital events, you can even get close to the camera for emphasis. I mean, don't get too close. It's not a TikTok video. But, okay, 10, 11, 12, you're afraid. Now, nobody likes to show fear, especially in the workplace. We're going to let it out now, and it's going to feel good. So show me your fear. 10, 11, 12. And 10, 11, 12. Great. 13, 14, 15 is going to be, you got a secret, and you want to tell the secret, but you can't. It's like you won the lottery, but if you tell, they won't give you the money. So that's going to be 13, 14, 15. Here we go. And 13, 14, 15. Okay. 16, 17, 18 is your TED Talk. Okay. So be pompous and over important. Okay. For 16, 17, 18. And 16, 17, 18. Ooh, I sound a little bit like a senior partner, don't I? Finally, 19, 20, and 21, we're going to be in love. And look, I don't want it to be weird, so like don't look straight at the camera. Look away from the camera. I don't want this to be a creepy thing, all right? So 19, 20, 21, in love. And 19, 20, 21. Oh, love. Love feels a lot like happy. By the way, if your love feels a lot like angry, you need therapy. All right, look, I did this for a reason. And the reason is you all know what these emotions look like, and you know what they sound like, and you know what they feel like. Don't be afraid to show them, because it's how you're going to connect with colleagues, the people you are trying to motivate, and it's going to be how you connect with everybody in your life, clients as well. I also want you to be able to recognize those emotions in others. Good leaders know how their people are feeling, and they're not afraid to ask the follow-up questions. Okay, that was it. And I thank you very much for your time and attention. I am Pep Rosenfeld. That is at Pep Rosenfeld on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You will not find me on Snapchat, TikTok, or Facebook. Thank you very much, and success. Happy 25th.
Thank you very much, Pep. This was very entertaining. And we have quite many questions for you, actually. And just to remind everyone listening at the moment that you are also allowed to place your question. Just use the Q&A button next to the speaker's name, and you can place your question. You can also see the other questions asked, and you can also upvote the question you like most. And we have one clear favorite from all the questions.
I can't lie. I'm very curious what the favorite question is going to be.
All right. I hope I don't disappoint you. The question is a bit lawyerish, I would say. Can you see how different cultures form the leader attitude or leader type? Are some cultures better in leading than others, just naturally because they rely on understanding instead of leading with fear?
Wow. I honestly don't know if I'm the right person to ask that question to. I get asked all the time if comedy is different for different cultures. And my answer is always, everybody thinks it's this different, but it's really this different. And then a lot of different reference bases. But I mean, you always hear that, certain Asian cultures, they're very, deferential to leaders. And in America, we have decided that scientists and masks are the devil. So I mean, there's clearly a wide range of leadership, but I don't want to generalize. I suspect the way that leaders are going to emerge has a lot more to do, based on what I've observed, with company culture and the examples from the top than with the national culture. I'm sure there's real hardcore, follow the leader companies in more laid back countries, and I'm sure there's more laid back companies in strict, authoritarian. I mean, not authoritarian, but in stricter countries as well. So there I kind of weaseled out of that in a lawyerly way.
All right. Yes, you also mentioned Brené Brown in your talk, and it's obviously takes a lot of courage to be a leader. So it's not for everyone, and you have to dare and be ready to lose several times, and it's really not for everyone. What would you say?
I mean, I'd say if I can continue quoting Brené Brown, that to me, I think a lot of people feel like, in order to lead, I've got to be this strong, inscrutable character whose shields are always up. But she would disagree. She would say the real bravery comes from being willing to be vulnerable, willing to show your soft side. And with that, I agree 100%. I think that it's real important. I mean, obviously leaders can't, buckle under pressure, and they can't look indecisive. That's bad leadership. But I think it's when someone's like, I can't be made fun of, and I mean, again, I can think of a leader who refuses to be made fun of and never is self-depreciating, and he's a pretty bad leader, and he's got orange skin. So, I think the real courage, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to be in charge of something, because if it fails, it's on you. Like, I think that goes without saying, but I think it also takes a ton of courage to put your team ahead of you and to be willing to open up about what you're vulnerable about as well. I think people have an instinct to bond on how tough they are, but I think people bond the best on how vulnerable they are.
Right. You as a nerd comedian, and by the way, I would like to understand what's the difference between a comedian and a nerd comedian, but still, of course, you enjoy, I would believe, being in the center of attention. But does a leader need to enjoy being in the center of attention? And the second part of the question would be, what is your quality as a nerd comedian that we lawyers should take over in our everyday life? What do you think?
Wow, those are two interesting questions I've never really thought of before. What was part one of that? Second part is what are the aspects of nerd comedian? What was the first part again? Give me the ending.
Nerd comedian versus comedian.
Yeah, I mean, I think
First one.
I think when I say I'm a nerd comedian, what I mean is I'm a recovering nerd. Like I'm I was on the math team in high school and the debate team, and I didn't really date much. Like I was a nerd, and back then it was tough. Back then, nerds would get beat up by the cool people. Now, of course, nerds are the cool people, and the people that used to beat us up, drive the Ubers that take us to events when they're happening in person. So I just think it turns out that stuff that nerds are interested in, everyone's interested in. Now, what can lawyers do that's also nerdish? Well, I think the thing that lawyers already do is you guys look at a million different data points and you sort of find out what the common thread is. I think that's what the best nerd comedians do. The best nerd comedians are like, oh, this is their purpose, and they discovered their purpose in Malta. What else happened in Malta? And how does that have to do with leadership? I think being a nerd comedian means making nerdy connections between something we're talking about and something nerdy, and then connecting them in a funny way. Now, if you can connect them in a way that frees the client, then you can star in a movie about lawyers.
All right. Well, I think you answer what is the best thing about lawyers, but what do you think is the worst?
Gosh, I think lawyers get a bad rap. Like I wasn't kidding when I said lawyers get a bad rap. I guess I really think the thing that is most annoying about lawyers, and I think this is because I do it sometimes myself as a nerd, is just too many words. Stop it. Stop it with the long emails. Stop it with the charts that nobody wants to look at. Ernest Hemingway, fewer words and make them count. Every slide in the PowerPoint doesn't have to be filled. Leave some white space.
All right. Well, we should really try that. So we also have one question from Aku Sorainen. Aku, are you ready with your question?
Giving a great fresh view on our core purpose and elements of our strategy. And I very much like your comment that every word counts. That is very, very important thing what we also educate our young lawyers, that when they write something, then every word counts. Take any word out which doesn't count. But I have the question to you is that you mentioned one interesting comment in your presentation about leaders eating last. Could you a little bit elaborate more on that? Sure,
although it's me quoting Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last. But when I saw him at the Nordic Business Forum, he was just really into leaders eat last because the team should eat lunch first, and the leader should make sure that all the business is done, and that the leader is sometimes in the leader's office doing leadership stuff while everybody else is eating and having a good time. And if there's no food left, well, leader's going to deal with it. But leaders eat last is really about how the leader shouldn't feel like. I used to have a motto when I would bike ride to my rehearsals, at Boom Chicago. If I was running late, I would say to myself, "You make the rules. You don't break the rules." I think a lot of leaders think because they're the leader, they should break the rules, but because they're the leader, they should follow the rules, and they should help everybody else as they're dealing with the rules. And I think that's what leaders eat last means. Leaders have to put the team first and themselves second. But I am quoting Simon Sinek there.
Okay.
Except
well, thank you very much.
That was pure Pep.
Thank you, Pep. It was really our pleasure to have you. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was great to be here. Thanks.